So, as you might recall, the focus of my work is on the relationship between individuals' endorsement of general principles and theories on the one hand, and their willingness to apply or endorse others' application of those theories or principles in particular cases on the other. And I've been focusing in the project I'll be discussing today on the principle or theory of deterrence, and in particular general deterrence. Common finding is that people endorse that theory, but when they encounter particular cases, their judgments about, say, how much a particular criminal should be punished are insensitive to factors that ought to matter according to the theory. Classic example being the likelihood of detecting a given crime. According to deterrence theorists, one optimizes deterrence by punishing hard-to-detect crimes more severely in order to offset that low probability of detection, thus maintaining an expected value of punishment that is high enough to deter the would-be wrongdoer. So Kevin Carlsmith has manipulated detection likelihood and found that people tend to be insensitive to that. So they punish a criminal whose crime is hard to detect the same as one whose crime is easy to detect. What they are sensitive to are factors that are relevant to just deserts theory, such as how outrageous the crime seems to be, all of which suggests that people tend to be intuitive retributivists and not intuitive deterrence theorists, despite their endorsement of the theory. One of the things that I wanted to ask is, what if we examined experts? Might they, for example, have better defined theories of deterrence that they would apply? Might they see the relevance of deterrence to these cases more so than non-experts? To get at that, I conducted a study in which 96 experts, legal experts that is, were exposed to a case of embezzlement where either the embezzler was committing a crime that was framed as hard to detect, so low detection likelihood, or very easy to detect, high likelihood of detection, and also the moral outrageousness of the crime was manipulated. And in general, the experts look like non-experts. They punish the more outrageous crime more severely. In general, they're insensitive to detection likelihood. But when you classify them by need for cognition, which, as a reminder, is a measure of cognitive motivations, how much individuals enjoy thinking and engage in cognitive activity, there's an interaction between need for cognition on the y-axis and likelihood of detection of the crime. And what's on the y-axis is the recommended sentence. Higher values represent more severe sentences. The high need for cognition experts are behaving like deterrence theorists. They're actually punishing the crime that's hard to detect more severely than the crime that's easy to detect. Whereas you don't see that pattern among the low need cog experts. So expertise seems to be insufficient, but it may be the combination of expertise and cognitive motivation. And it's also worth noting, and this is in response to a question that John raised last year, I have yet to see this pattern among non-experts. So it does seem to be specific to the legal experts. Now the question remains, even though we can induce this deterrence application, or at least behavior that appears to be the application of deterrence among the experts, could we induce non-experts to do this? And the long story short is, I found that it's possible to get them to behave like deterrence theorists, but it takes hitting them over the head with a sledgehammer. In particular, the sledgehammer is the sledgehammer of anchoring. I've done several studies where I've deliberately confounded a detection likelihood manipulation with an anchoring manipulation, where what I mean by that is half the participants are told that they're given a scenario in which a crime is described as hard to detect, and they're told that in cases like this, it's recommended that jurors set a penalty of 15 years versus crimes that are easy to detect, where they're told that the juries are recommended to set a penalty of 2 weeks. They're told they're free to ignore that, to attend to that if they wish, and what you find is, say in this case, with this is a sample of over 200 non-college students, so individuals sampled through a marketing company that sends web traffic to my web surveys. What you can see is, in the condition in which the crime is hard to detect and they're given a high anchor, they recommend a more severe punishment than when the crime is easy to detect and a low anchor is set. And this is true even when you pull out the people who just repeat the anchor that they were given, so it's not just that this is driven by those individuals. Now I should acknowledge that this seems to just be an anchoring effect. In another study in which I deliberately confounded the anchor with the manipulation of whether the the crime was highly public, or the punishment was highly public or not, where, thanks, according to deterrence theory, the case for punishment is stronger with a highly public crime or highly public punishment. There you see that people are punishing more severely in the condition where there's a high anchor, which is also the condition in which the crime was said to be highly public, than when the punishment is said to be less public, but there's a low anchor. But even if you omit any reference to publicity, you're still just finding the same effect. It's just an anchoring effect. In other work that I won't have time to discuss because I've just been zeroed out, I've examined how people respond to descriptions of others' application of deterrence. There is a wealth of work showing that people, even those who are expert in deterrence, when asked if it's fair, if it's appropriate to punish hard-to-detect crimes more severely than crimes that are easy to detect, people say in general that's not a good idea. And I found that that is true, but it depends on how you frame it. That same disparity, whether it's framed as punishing a hard-to-detect crime more severely than an easy-to-detect crime, can also be framed the other way, punishing crimes that are easy to detect less severely than the other way around. And people don't respond to those frames the same way. I'll tell you which way they do if a question comes up later, but I'm out of time, so I'll have to stop. So thank you.